Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing this on my chair. We're going to be talking about subtraction in game design. What does that mean? Subtraction in game design is reducing a game down to its core components in order to optimize this gameplay. This is commonly done in puzzle games. You'll notice we commonly talked about elements such as minimalism and elegance, which incorporate the core component of subtraction. In puzzle games, good ones at least, subtraction occurs by reducing anything dead space, anything that doesn't serve the primary purpose, or everything that causes confusion to the player from the game in order to allow the player to have the simplest solutions or gain the solutions as fast as possible. So when reading this article, he basically just lists games and then talks about them. So I'm sort of going to be not following in his steps, but sort of just reading those back at you. So the first one he reads is one by Ico. Ico is a puzzle adventure game between a boy and a girl, right? And what the designer did for this project was they reduced it down to those core components with the no enemies, no inventory, nothing that affected the core gameplay. If it didn't affect the core gameplay, it wasn't it. You could argue that puzzles could be a part of the core gameplay. Adventure games did that a lot. However, specifically for him, he wanted it to be not. So he didn't. If your game included an inventory system, you'd want to optimize usage of that and also make it as usable as possible. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to include it. That's the idea behind subtraction, where if it's not doing anything for your core gameplay, or if it's disrupting gameplay in any way, it should be removed. Next, he talks about Braid. Braid is a time-traveling 2D adventure game. And some things he talked about here was that Braid didn't have any UI, right? So there wasn't anything for like controls or anything. Most of the UI was most likely diegetic, meaning in the world, right? So if you see text on a wall that says press W to crouch, that's what diegetic is. I don't know why you'd be crouching with W. This works specifically for Braid because it was only 2 buttons. There was time rewind and time forward. Well, no, there was movement and then there was jump and then time rewind and time forward. I don't think he used WASD movement, but yeah, this strategy wouldn't work in more complex games. Think about a game like Call of Duty. You kind of need UI for that because it's trying to appeal to more average gamers, so you need to account for people who maybe don't remember the controls or weren't paying attention when you first explained them to them, and you need to offer opportunities for them to be available at all times. And then he talks about the controversy of subtractive design. This isn't necessarily like drama alert controversy, sort of just like why people are sort of against it. Or why it's difficult. Distilling an idea down to its core idea requires you to admit what the game is and what the core is. So obviously, in order to reduce a game to its core elements, you need to know what its core elements are, and sometimes those aren't the elements you intended it to be. He uses the example of when he was working on a Street Fighter game, he had to think of, he posed the question of, is Street Fighter about complex combos? Or is it about more skilled fighters, you know? That wasn't exactly it, but it was more or less just saying, should we implement more complex combos, or does that take away from what we're trying to do, you know? And that was a interesting question. He also said that it's important with something like this to focus on the core genre aspects. So if I say we're making an RPG, it's really important to understand what an RPG is to all of us. or if I'm doing a solo project, what an RPG is to me. I can say RPG, and if you play video games, you have a different idea. If you play board games, you have a different idea of what RPG means. So genres are guidelines, but if you aren't specific, these guidelines don't function as guidelines. They function as vague lines that sort of exist, but sort of don't, because some people don't realize they exist, you know? So yeah, that would be genre core stuff. And then the conclusion would be get a starting point while you go along, make sure to be on the lookout for things that get in the way of the core gameplay. The entire thing about subtractive design is to reduce any blockage between your gameplay and the player's brain. You want to it's just right through there. Sometimes gameplay comes in different forms, and bigger games can afford to do more, and sometimes that's what people want. Sometimes people don't want more centralized experiences, and that's okay. But for puzzle games, especially shorter ones, you don't want to meander. You want to get to the point as fast as possible. All right. This was on June 10th, by the way. I'll do June 11th sometime today.